All right, welcome everyone. This is Q&A. Again, I want to welcome everyone to this Q&A. Question came in, or a few questions came in. See how far we get here. And first question was about collective punishment. Question was, why does Hashem punish the descendants of sinning Jews? Like, for example, sin of the golden calf, or killing the prophet Isaiah, etc. Shouldn't it be? Only specific sinners should be punished, and not the descendants, right? So what's the deal? So the first thing is, if you look at the sin of the golden calf, because that was really main part of the question, God says that in Exodus 25, chapter 25, verse 8, God says, I want you to make a tabernacle out, and I want to dwell amongst the Jewish people. Right? I want to dwell amongst the Jewish people. Now, because of the sin of the golden calf, what did God decide? God decides, well, got a problem here. The Jewish people deserve to be wiped out. So God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, I'll wipe everyone out, I'll start with you. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, no deal. He says, no, you're not going to destroy the Jewish people. But God says, if I go amongst them, if I show my presence amongst them, they won't survive. So there was a compromise. There was a compromise being made. What was the compromise? Compromise is that for all future generations, every generation is going to suffer. All right, we spoke about this. We spoke about the sin of Nadav and Aviv, beginning of the book of Leviticus chapter 16. All right, so the question is, okay, every generation has to suffer, but we weren't there. We didn't do it with the golden calf. So people have to understand there's a collective punishment. It only works by the Jewish people, by nobody else. And what's the reason? Because the Gemara says, Kol Yisrael Ravim said, was it? All Jews are intertwined. Now, if all Jews are intertwined, whether it's a secular Jew, a religious Jew, does something wrong, we're all blamed. For better or for worse. Hitler, may his name be blotted out, may rot wherever he is. He didn't care if you're half Jewish, quarter Jewish, you had Jewish blood, you deserve to die. Right? That's collective punishment. Now, if the example we always give is if an Italian in Brooklyn does something wrong, everyone say, burn down Brooklyn. Burn down Italy. No more cannolis. No. They'll say, okay, whatever the person did. But they're not going to go that far with it. I mean, depending on the ethnicity, but in general, they're not going to go that far with it. Why? Because non-Jews are intertwined. Nobody cares what a non-Jew in Brooklyn does. What an Italian in Brooklyn does. Or anybody else in general. They're not going to say all people like this, all people like that. Then the vernacular, what we would call that? We call that racism. 100% we call it racism. Oh, but what about Jews? Jews are held to a different standard. Totally different standard. Right? And the standard is that if we do things wrong, we pay the price. So, question being over here, why is there collective punishment? Because the Jewish people are intertwined. If the Jewish people wouldn't be intertwined, right, then I could understand. Then simply I could understand. then it wouldn't make so much sense. But if we are responsible one for another, and that's one of the reasons that a Jew is obligated to try and reach out to non-religious Jews, try and bring them back to the fold, so to speak. Why? Because we're all intertwined. We're all intertwined. So that's where it comes from. Otherwise, why would I have a connection? You say, okay, my fellow Jew, we have a connection. Our souls are at Mount Sinai, etc. Okay? But who says I got an obligation to reach out to them? To draw them close? I wouldn't say you have to. Unless I know we're all interrelated. But see, all the nations have no connection one to another. I just learning this earlier. That what did Sancheirav come and do? It mentions many times he messed up everybody. Right? Population exchanges, different things. Nobody knows who they are today. Even the Muslims who are going to claim, come directly from Yishmael, this and that. The Netziv, interesting in the Torah where it says that Yishmael is a wild man, the Netziv of Naftali Tzvi Berliner, a blessed memory, who took over the Volozhin Yeshiva after Rabbi Chaim of Volozhin. So he says that Muslims who would never go to war and never hurt another Muslim. That's what he says. Now, what's the problem with that? We see that's not the case. We see they get Sunnis against Shiites, and everywhere in between, they're all fighting. Fundamentalists, more fundamentalists, less fundamentalists. So how could we explain the Netziv? So it could be before, when they're all they're not dispersed, so to speak. They're all one unit. Then I could hear. Then you would tell me that a Muslim's not going to do anything to a non-Muslim, not going to cheat from them, steal from them. But if they're all messed up, like all the other nations, so you can't say we go direct to Yishmael. They may try and show it, whatever, right? But in general, they're not going to harm their own. That's what he's saying. They're never going to harm their own. So you have to say their own aren't their own. They're not related as well as they think. Possible explanation. Because Sancheirav messed all that up. Totally messed that up. So you don't want to tell me you come from Yishmael. You can't say directly you do. Because they all got messed up. Possible answer. Right? So what can I conclude from that? Very simple. All the non-Jews have no connection one to another. Doesn't matter, they live in the same country. Not connected. They're not connected like Jews are. Totally not. Because if I wouldn't understand we're all intertwined, then I'd say we're like everybody else. But we know from Jewish history, we know from the Torah, we're not like everybody else. Many things we're not like everybody else. Right? We're the chosen nation. True. Right? We're supposed to lead by example. And we've had very difficult times throughout the millennium. Pogroms, Holocaust, all kinds of things. And the reason is because we're not doing what we should. And we're close to the king. Closer you are to the king, the more you get burned. All right? So someone here asks, did I say it doesn't matter how Jewish you are, you're still held to collect the punishment? Yeah. Some more, some less. But we're all held to collect the punishment. There's no way to escape. I'll give an example. Now, I told this earlier to somebody. That Rabbi Tauber, I once took him to speak, a blessed memory. I once took him to speak to students at Tel Aviv University. So Tauber was a student of the Holocaust. Was a child of the Holocaust. And what happened? At the end of the war, the very end of the war, some 7-year-old guy is brought into the ghetto, screaming, pulling out his hair, going crazy, crying. And he's saying, it's all my fault, it's all my fault. They calmed him down. They said, what happened? He said, I lived outside the ghetto for years. And, I married a non-Jew. I have kids, I have grandkids. And one night we had a discussion. And they said, hey, Dad, Grandpa, you're Jewish. He said, so what? Well, it doesn't mean anything. So what if I'm Jewish? What does it have to do with anything? I eat the same food you do the same things you do. Judaism doesn't mean anything to me. So no, but you're still Jewish. What did his family do? They turned him in. Own family turned him in to the Nazis. So this guy's going crazy. Can't understand what's going on. Now you have to understand that historically, you're talking the very end of the war. Germans know they're losing. The war is going to be over. Russians coming in, destroy them. They're going to flee. So the obvious question would be, why is God now making this point? The Germans need another bar of soap. What do they need this guy for? Why did they turn him in now? What happened during the entire war? Tell me it happened in 1939, 1940, 43. I can understand. But 1945, the end of the war. So Rabbi Tauber said, God was sending a message. You know what the message was? The message was you can run from your heritage, but you can't hide. Because God says, I'm going to find you. You can change your name. You can never do anything Jewish. But I know, God says. I know. Right? So, okay, you tell me this person did something absolutely egregious. Worst thing anyone can do in Judaism just about by marrying a non-Jew. Oh, nothing worse. Okay, so you tell me that's one of the worst things. So he's going to be made an example. Okay. Very well could be true. At the same time, even if you have no connection to this and nothing else, you can get punished for being a Jew. That's why the secular Jews couldn't understand during the Holocaust. They said, why are you taking us? Take the religious Jews. We fought your wars. We eat your food. Married your women. Germany was about 80% into marriage. Right? We did all these things. And Hitler Yamach Shemo said, I don't care. You got Jewish blood, I'm going to kill you. And that's what he said, and that's what he did, or he tried to do. So they're going crazy saying, but we didn't do anything wrong. Oh, sure. You didn't do anything wrong. Collective punishment. Whether something's done by an Orthodox Jew, a secular Jew, anywhere in between, what's going to end up happening is all the Jews suffer. Right? Someone will say, well, I can understand if secular Jews do things wrong, punishment should be on them. They don't know, look what they're doing. Look at the terrible things they're doing. Why are Orthodox Jews getting picked on? If you see by anti-Semitism, I was just thinking this the other day, that, anytime you see a Jew getting beaten up or attacked, he looks like an ultra-Orthodox Jew, right? He's got a strimal on. He's got a black hat on. He looks visibly like an Orthodox Jew. So I was thinking, what about all the religious Zionists? Why aren't they getting attacked? Seemingly. All the videos that go viral, you see, they're ultra-Orthodox Jews. You don't see someone with a knitted yarmulke getting attacked. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but, it's just interesting. Why? Why are we more visible? Because they dress like everybody else. They may act like everybody else in different ways. Just that they have, a knitted yarmulke on their head. Now, does that mean they're any less righteous? No. Doesn't matter about dress in general. The way we do dress, though, I'm not going to say it's insignificant, but it doesn't matter. You can have people where knitted yarmulke is very, very religious. Even more religious than ultra-Orthodox Jews. Could very well be. Very well be. But you don't see these groups being attacked. Yeah, it's just an interesting phenomenon. You don't see them being attacked. Now, does that mean they're not? I'm sure, they're also getting their fair share. Right? We just don't see it. It doesn't go viral in general, or it's much less. But the fact is, we're much more visible. You walk down the street with a black hat and a suit, you're a target. So someone will say, so dress differently. We're not going to dress differently. God runs the world. Anti-Semitism not something that is logical or makes logical sense. But we're targets. So why are we being more, why are we being more targets than anyone else? Because we're out there more. We're more visible. And if we do wrong things, I was just listening to something earlier, or actually last week, about how we're perceived, let's say in certain businesses or whatever, and people don't act properly, gives everybody a bad name. Everybody. Secular Jews, Orthodox Jews, anywhere in between. And that's a hard thing to fight against. Because if someone does something wrong, or let's say a lot of people do something wrong, and they look visibly like Orthodox Jews, they sell bad merchandise, they rip people off, they misrepresent, they're conniving, right? The list goes on. Not saying everybody, obviously. But you got people in certain businesses, when people hear they're Orthodox Jews, they don't have anything to do with it. You can say that's racist. Maybe. But why is that? Let's ask the $1.5 million question. We're up in the ante. Well, what's the $1.5 million question? Why do they have such a bad name? I think it's obvious why. Because there are people out there doing unscrupulous things. And when you do unscrupulous things, you belong to a certain group, you get labeled. I'm not saying it's right, but you get labeled. And when you get labeled, everybody gets labeled. Even if you're honest. I can't even tell you how many times I've heard, I give an example. During Corona, it was a big funeral. It was a big funeral in Brooklyn. And the police, was going to allow it. And then at the last second, they reneged on it. And it was a whole big mess. A whole big mess. Now, if they would have asked me, I would have said, don't do a big thing. Don't make a big thing out of it. Even though the honor of the deceased should have been, but okay. We're not living in normal times. So you should downplay it. Even if they allowed it. Right? But they didn't ask me. Okay. So somebody says to me, well, I hope you're not going to be like them. And look what they did. But see, the damage is already done. Because even if they say the police gave them permission and they write that up in the article and then they reneged on it, what do they hear? They reneged on it. They don't hear they gave them permission. But it came back to me because obviously I represent being an Orthodox Jew. So the person said, I hope you wouldn't do that. And your family and others wouldn't, so what are they doing? They're dumping me with everybody else. Collectively. Did I organize, a 20,000 people funeral? No. Was I holding by the rules of Corona? Yes. My family? Yes. Other people? Yes. No. Why are you singling out me? I hope you wouldn't do that. I didn't. Right? So someone will say, well, that's wrong. You're right. Because if I would say it about blacks, Chinese, or anyone else, they would call that being racist. Well, I'm good. You're doing the right thing. Now, you hear the connotation and then. So I got labeled with everybody else, even though I didn't do anything wrong. God forbid if I would have done something wrong, it would have been worse. Totally worse. How could you do such and such? Don't you claim, keep God's law? Yeah. But see, we have an evil inclination like everybody else does. We're no different. You should know better. You're right. 100%. We should know better. So now I would say, you secular Jews, you don't know better. Why do you get a free pass? Oh, but we don't claim to be religious. I heard someone talking to a driver a couple of weeks ago, bus driver. Whatever, he's trying to draw a little bit closer to Judaism. He goes, listen, I'm not a hypocrite. I don't put a yarmulke on my head. I don't keep a skull cap, whatever you want to call it. I don't put it on my head. I'm not a hypocrite. Right? As if to say that, yeah, when people do things wrong, they're a hypocrite. Now, that's not necessarily true. We have an evil inclination. Doesn't mean what we do is right. And if we're trying to do the right thing, our evil inclination overcomes. Oh, you're a hypocrite. Nobody's saying we're Moshe Rabbeinu. Nobody was saying, that we do everything all the time when we should. That's our obligation. That there's no question. But you see, then someone comes out and says, see, you're supposed to do it, you don't do it. Why should I even bother? That's the connotation. I don't have to do it because you don't even keep it. It's catch-22. We do the best we can. We're not perfect by any stretch. But see, once a person gets caught doing something, or someone else, doesn't have to be you, someone else gets caught doing something, someone gets angry and they curse and say, isn't that against the rules? Yeah. So why'd you do it? Bad habit. Happens. See, we have to be more than squeaky clean. We have to be so squeaky clean they can't say anything. They can just make up stuff. But we don't want to give anybody any ammunition at all. Nothing. So they can't open their fat traps. And they're going to make themselves feel good about themselves. Right? Because the mentality is, oh, look, this person did this. I'm okay. I don't do that. And you're supposed to keep the law. We see you don't, so why should I? Obviously, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Because it has nothing to do with what I do or what anyone else does. Right? If you're a Jew, you got to follow what the Torah says. That's it. No excuses. You got to follow what the Torah says. Just because some people don't or make mistakes or egregious mistakes or whatever, that means I can do whatever I want. That gives me a free pass. Doesn't give me a free pass. Doesn't give me a free pass. But we see according to the Torah by the sin of the golden calf. And we see by other things. We see, the book of Esther. You see what happens. See what happened in Shushan. So what does God say? What does God say? What does God do? He makes a decree against all the Jews. It wasn't all the Jews that sinned over here. Right? One opinion, the Talmud says is, they had to go to this 180-day party that Achashverosh had. They also had to go. They had no choice. But who says they had to enjoy as much as they did? But not everybody did. There were people probably there. They didn't want to be there. Thoughts were elsewhere. Other people, problematic. But if you're there and you're not doing anything wrong, but someone else does, you got to say, that has nothing to do with me. What does that have to do with me? God says it was so disgusting that he's going to wipe out everybody. Same question. Same exact question. But in that case, we were saved. Miraculous. Even though God's name's not mentioned in the book at all, you see behind the scenes, God's there the whole time. So some people could do something egregious, and a lot of people could suffer because of it. And what could God do? Let's say God gets so angry, he says, you know what? What's going on over here is so bad. Really? I should take 50,000 Jews. Pogrom, knock them out. God says, you know what? I have mercy. Instead of knocking them all out, God says, I'm going to take 5. I'm going to take 10 righteous people. And that's going to appease my character trait of anger. Of judgment. You're going to say, but these 10 people are righteous. Why should they be taken? in this way because God makes a henchman, he makes a calculation. And he says, really, I should wipe out a ton. But instead, I'll take a few roses and that'll avert a greater program. So when righteous people die, whose fault is it? It's ours. Because if we do what we're supposed to do, they wouldn't die. They're going to die at some point. Right? But, they may live longer to protect us. Their merit of what they do and how they live protects the generation. And if we don't do what we're supposed to do, we don't merit that protection. And when we don't have that protection, it's a lot worse. We need Torah giants in every generation to protect the generation spiritually. Because if the masses don't do what they're supposed to do, they bear the brunt of it. Now you're going to say, well, they do wrong. They're living at a high level. They're trying to keep everything at bay. But you know what? They're held responsible. They're the leaders of the generation. The ones that we should look up to, we should emulate. Question is, again, they're held responsible. You can say it's not their fault. They're doing what they should be doing and more. 10 times more. Billion times more. But the answer is, if they're the leaders of the generation, they may get knocked off because of the sins of the generation. Because they're responsible. They're going to say, how can they be responsible? How in the world can they be responsible? They have to do whatever they can. Give discussions, write things, warn people, just like prophets. Warn people, this is going to come back to bite you. This should be forbidden. This you got to be careful of. Can't go to every single person's house, obviously. But they hold some sort of responsibility. The leaders of the generation pay. But I'm just pointing out, they could be taken because they can't protect us anymore and God's going to take them. Now, does that mean, let's just, make clear. Someone's going to say, hey, doesn't it sound all like Christianity? It's not. They're not living to die. That's not what they're here for. I mean, they're eventually going to die. Right? There's no question. But they're not here. They're not here for that thing. They're not here to suffer for the sins of everyone else. And then no one has to do anything. We're not going that far. We're not going that far. We're not going there at all. All we're saying is they have the power to protect the generation. And they may suffer, and God forbid may be taken from this world because of the sin of the generation. Which means that we got to be more careful. We always have to be careful. Right? But that's what it means. That when we don't do what we're supposed to do, there are repercussions. If, we go get it the other way. If Jews properly keep Shabbos in the land of Israel, it stops people in France from desecrating Shabbos. It's also measure for measure. It can be good, it can be bad. Sometimes we may only see the bad. We may only see the bad of it. But it is definitely true. We are all responsible. Whether it sounds fair or not, we're held to a higher standard. The rest of the world is not held to a higher standard to a certain, to many extents. Non-Jews in general, they have to worry about what they think. No. They have to keep what's universal. Even that, a lot of non-Jews don't do. But, they have to keep what's obvious, what's universal. They don't, they'll get severely punished. But see, it starts with us Everything revolves around us. And what's going to be? You look at what's going on in the Ukraine, right? And we say everything's done for the sake of Jewish people. Well, what's going on here? How can I say that has to do with the Jewish people? Because a lot of people get involved, this thing could get nasty. It could be a major war. Could be the beginning of Gog and Magog. Could be. It could be the beginning of the end. Will it be? See where it goes. But that could have serious repercussions for us and the rest of the world. Nothing happens for no reason. It's not just out of the blue he decides to go in, and try and take over. You've been wanting to do this for a while. Why specifically now? Good question. Very good question. They built up strategically, this, that. We're not going to get into politics. But we can make all kinds of calculations. Why? Does it matter? Doesn't matter. For us, what's the bottom line? What's going to be the end result? Where's it going to go? Could it be made into a massive thing? Everyone's involved. Get NATO involved. All the other nations involved. Could it happen? Certainly could happen. Could things get very feisty with nuclear weapons? Certainly could. Does anyone know where it's going to go? No. Please say they're talking about a ceasefire, this, that. Okay, we'll see. But again, how do we view things? Right? How do we view things over here? We view things the way the Torah wants us to see them. Now, we don't always understand, what's going on. And what action could do this or do that, do the other thing. Let's understand just that from another standpoint. The world, as we understand, not too hard to fathom, the world's a powder keg. An absolute powder keg. And one reason is you get all these significant minority groups of Muslims in a lot of countries. France, Germany, all over Europe. And they could shut down countries if they wanted to. Did that a number of years ago in France. France, is I wouldn't say it's like a weak country here. They shut down France for like 3 weeks. So anything can happen over there also. There, other places. How it mates itself out, we don't know. I think the writing's on the wall, it's just a matter of when. Well, something else could trigger something, and then who knows? Because even though this has been building up, I don't think last year people were thinking he's going to go into Ukraine. Maybe some of the political pundits will say, oh, we knew this was going to happen, whatever. And they say, we predicted it, but okay. Even if we say that's true, till it happens, right? Till something happens, it didn't happen yet. Doesn't matter what it looks like. So there could be serious ramifications. Right? Someone points out there are a lot of Jews there. True. A lot of Israelis there. Very true. Let's make no mistake. No matter how many Jews are there. That whole country, Russia's got a name, which means evil. It's not a coincidence either. There's a lot of Jewish blood on their hands all over the country. All over. Ukraine, no lover to Jews. I was talking to someone yesterday, came out, lived in America, went to America when he was 14, came from the Ukraine. He said, I don't even think about that place and what they did and what the Russians did. He said, they have it coming. They got a lot of Jewish blood on their hands. A lot of Jewish blood. Is that the reason? I'm not saying it's the reason. But see, God judges nations also. Every nation, every city, every town has a scale, right? For good or bad. when the scale goes down the side of bad, at some point God said, okay, we're going to do something here. When, what, where, how, we don't know. But there's no such thing as justice not being done. Now you're going to say, you're right. There are a lot of Jews there. A lot of people could die. That's very true. And that's tragic. There's no question about it. Right? And people, everyone's saying free Ukraine, all this, all over the place. But guess what? Why are they getting flattened over here? But that's the question. What do the Ukrainians do to deserve this madman to go try and take them over? And want to conglomerate more power. So you can say he's just an idiot. I mean, not an idiot, but you can say he wants more power, he wants this. They did certain thing, whatever it is. But guess what? Up in heaven, God's looking down and saying, this is judgment. However it goes, this is judgment against the Ukrainians. For what? It could be specifically for what they did to the Jews throughout history. All the negative things they did. Murders, pogroms, communism, everything combined. Now again, is that the reason? Now, I'm not a prophet. I'm not a son of a prophet. Like someone was telling me yesterday. He said, they are not guiltless by any stretch at all. I'm not saying, people say it's man's inhumanity in man. True. But see, we have to look at it from the eyes of the Torah. And the eyes of the Torah are going to tell you, guess what? There's judgment going on there. And there may be Jews that get killed there. Also, God forbid. But this is judgment. Now, I could think, which I probably do think, that, this could be, maybe a little bit payback for what they did to the Jews. There are no lovers of Jews by any stretch. They got a lot of Jewish blood on their hands. Now, again, why now? Don't know. Is it the beginning of other things to happen? Could very well be. Could this just stop here? We don't know. We don't know. But make no mistake, any city that gets hit, any houses that get hit, it's judgment. Not just by accident. You're going to say, what about Jewish places? They can also get caught up in this. Can also get hit while being there. Collectively, for who knows what. But at the same time, a city gets hit with a hurricane, tsunami, there's judgment. Things don't happen by accident. Right? The Ramchal brings down there in Derech Hashem in the way of God, clear. These things don't happen by accident. They don't have their own power. God's wielding them as power, as part of his power. Now, why is he going to wield it against one place and not another? That's his decision. But make no mistake, when a place gets hit, and a place gets hit hard, it's judgment. It's clear it's judgment. Even if it looks like innocent people get hit. Because when the angel of death is running around, the Gemara says, even God forbid innocent people can get hit. Wrong place, wrong time. But they have to be liable for a death penalty. You're just going to get hit by accident. So you got Jews in the middle. It's tragic, it's no question. But you have to see it from Torah perspective. And you see all these things. See people with these free Ukraine shirts and all kinds of things. Listen, no one should be killed. No one should be gunned down. Shouldn't be wars. I agree with all that. God's showing something over here. He's saying they deserve to be punished. Now, how much they get punished? Time will tell. Time will tell. They get tremendous power here. See how far they take it. Innocent people are going to get killed? Yeah, God forbid. It's going to happen. That's what happens in war. But, it doesn't matter, if they're not the aggressors. What matters is how we view it. And when people die, it's tragic. Especially if they get taken over and all that. Very true. Keep one thing in mind. Keep one thing in mind. Everything happens in the world for the sake of Jews. That's not being arrogant. Some people may say that is arrogance. But until we came on the scene, God didn't have any reason to create the world. He only created the world knowing that the Jewish people are going to accept the Torah. How do I know? Because Rashi says, on the sixth day, it says, Yom HaShishi. God created the sixth day. He said, the sixth day. Why the sixth day? Every other day, fifth day, fourth day, third day. Why the sixth day? What's the hay? The Rashi says, brings from the Gemara, that says that's when the Torah is going to be given on Mount Sinai. Hey, Sivan or Vav or whatever, the sixth day of Sivan. Right, the whole discussion, exactly what the date is, doesn't really matter. But God's only going to give the Torah when he knows someone's going to accept it. That's the purpose of the world, is that we accepted the Torah. Many times we didn't do what we're supposed to do. Okay, there are claims against us, no question. But why God create the world? What's the purpose of the world? He didn't need man. Could have used animals, plants. But see, he wanted someone in this world that had a spiritual soul and a physical body. Animals don't have that. Plants don't have that. They're programmed. Programmed DNA. But he needs someone who wants to be close to him and to give over his message. Who's that going to be? Jewish people. God knows that from the beginning. Otherwise, he wouldn't create the world. Because no one else would have accepted the Torah. And that we know clear. Talmud tells us that. Medrash tells us that. None of the nations wanted the Torah. No one. God came to the Jewish people and said, you want to know what's in the Torah? They said, no. They said, we'll do, then we'll hear. They didn't care. But if it wasn't for us, there'd be no Torah. No one else is going to accept it. So people can say arrogance up the gazoo. That's not what it is. God created the world for the sake of his people. To get that message out to the world. That's what we're doing here. That's our purpose. Live in this world. We're here to toil, to struggle. We get it wrong. Okay, you're close to the king, you're going to pay a price. But anyone who doesn't do what they're supposed to do, there's going to be a price to pay. Individuals, cities, towns, countries, continents. Listen, look at Africa. Africa paid the price. Nothing good's come out of Africa in general. I'll pay the price for a long time. You can tell me they've been taken over, been subjugated, all these things, okay? Most other countries have come out of it, whatever they went through 300 years ago, 400 years ago. It's about everyone else has, except them. It's been an unbelievable decree against the whole continent, not just nations. There have been famines, wars, more wars, famines. Nothing's come out of there. Every other nation, has a claim to fame. In Portugal, for goodness sake, they were a world power at one time. Time of exploration. England had its day. Other nations had their day. They never had their day. Don't make any logical sense. So there's a decree there. Crazy decree on an entire continent, not just a nation, the entire place. So when we see these things happen, quote unquote natural disasters or wars or whatever, don't think people are guilty. That we shouldn't think. You say, but women, children, they have to flee, and that's part of war. That's true. And they get caught up in it also. But what does that have to do with anything? Collective. God meets our punishment. It's collective. People that deserve to be spared will be spared. But when you have a whole country, let's say better. Yeah, when you have a whole country, said it right. when you have, I was going to say continent, it's not continent. When you have a whole country and they have destroyed, annihilated, brainwashed tens of thousands of millions of Jews. Let me ask you the $1.5 million question. You don't think God's going to pay them back? You think, nothing's going to happen to them? Oh, they're going to get paid back. They are going to get paid back in a nasty way. God will take care of them. There's no doubts. God is going to take care of them. But seeing our puny brains, the whole world, horrible Ukraine. Look what's going on there. It's true. They're getting decimated. However far it goes. But look what they've done to the Jews. Really, it's all that matters. Even what they've done to others as well. Stalin, this madman, killed them. Millions of his own people. Not a nice place, let's just say. But how it's annihilated the Jewish people. And what do you think? Not going to be held responsible? They'll be held responsible. They're going to be held responsible. Could this very well be payback? Yes, it could. Very well could be payback. Didn't God provide a place for Jews to go? Yeah. He did. So, does that mean any place they're going to go is a safe haven? Doesn't mean that. Jews got thrown out of almost every country they've ever been in. France, England, Germany. Been thrown out of almost every country. Right? Maybe not the US. Haven't been thrown out there yet. But everywhere they went, they've had problems. They've been subjugated to all kinds of things. Spain, forgot about Spain. Right? So God gave them a place to go, true. Why do you think so many people left that area of the world? Because they got persecuted. They couldn't live. They couldn't live as Jews. That's why they left. They fled. Just because God gives them a place to live doesn't mean that's not going to be good for them. Doesn't mean that. Listen, the Jews still had to have gratitude even for the Egyptians, what the Egyptians did to them, because they gave them a place to live. So they had to show gratitude at least to the Egyptians. What did God do to the Egyptians? Pulverize them for what they did. Oh, but they held the Jews there, but they made their lives a misery. Totally misery. Someone here mentions, isn't Ukraine's minister Jewish? President. Yeah, he's Jewish. I mean, think. That's what they say. You live in a place, the problem is, you're right, they were given haven there. They lived there. Did they distinguish themselves by being Jews? Like it says in the Haggadah, by when the Jews were in Egypt, they distinguished themselves. They became like everybody else. Giving them a safe haven is good. But if you assimilate and you become like everyone else, that's not good. It happened everywhere they went. In France, when Napoleon opened up the ghetto, big mistake. Big mistake. Jews should have stayed in the ghetto. Should have stayed amongst themselves. They wouldn't have intermarried, assimilated. First thing they did, anytime any ghetto has been open, the Jews assimilated. Someone asked me about conspiracy theories. I haven't looked into this. I'm not really following it so much. But, with NWO, with other things, I don't know. I'm telling you that I think it's definitely divine punishment. I don't think there's any question about it. Because of all the Jewish blood there. Is it more what's going on? I don't know. I'm not necessarily a big conspiracy theorist. But I don't know. I think they're getting just desserts though. Like I said, we'll see where it goes. We'll definitely see where it goes. But there's a lot of Jewish blood there. A lot of Jewish blood there. And they destroyed lives. Hundreds of thousands of lives just through communism. Just through brainwashing them. Being atheists. That alone, they deserve to be punished. and demolished. Because you get tens of thousands, millions of Russian Jews don't know anything about Judaism. Nothing. Not interested. They're atheists, communists. That's why they were brought up. They destroyed Judaism. That's what they've done. Made it very, very hard. Even when, they were Jewish dynasties in Hasidim and all over. Destroyed. Tried to destroy them. Spiritually, physically. Again, I'm not saying, innocent people should die. I'm not advocating that at all. I see what the media is doing and everyone else, and they're rallying around them. They're the underdog. I get it. They're not blameless. If they were blameless, they wouldn't be attacked. They wouldn't be under siege. And in this case, they are definitely guilty of all kinds of horrific crimes. I don't think there's any question about it. Now, someone said there are 350,000 Jews here. That's not good. Caught up in the middle. Definitely not good. But they are not guiltless by any stretch. When it comes to Jews and Judaism, not guiltless at all. Russia, no different. The whole place over there is drenched in Jewish blood. Totally drenched in Jewish blood. It's not going to be payback. Come on. They get paid back. Where it ends up, I don't know. Because I really delved into it, so much. And one thing actually I saw my Rebbe today, I was going to ask him, but I didn't, I didn't get to it. But, give his take. But, to me, I think it's clear. That's punishment. I don't think there's any question. Someone ever want to say it's avodah zarah with Amalek combined. I don't think it's idolatry. Even though someone did tell me yesterday that, Russia's very Catholic. I mean, they were communists, for however long, So, yeah, could very well be both together. Very well could be idolatry and Amalek together. But, yeah, they're not guiltless. I don't think they're any guiltless. Someone asked, did they pay the price of Ham and Canaan? No. The country of Africa paid the price. Sorry, the continent. That's the only way to explain it. It's what Ham did. What he did to Noah. There is no other explanation why. But that's on the whole continent. Russia hasn't had that happen. Been successful in its own ways. Been a major world power. Africa's never been anything. Not a world power, not nothing. They've been demolished. Relegated to, demolished status. Whatever you want to call it. Russia never had that. They were successful. Been successful. Even if communism maybe not been so successful, whatever. Right? But they've been for a while a major world power. Africa's never been a major world power. Africa's never been anything. Zero. Less than zero. Someone there points out Ukrainian soldiers have stormtrooper helmets with Nazi emblem. Yeah, that's not surprising. That's not surprising. Not gonna, again, whatever happened, it's divine judgment. That's clear. That's definitely clear. But, for exactly what and when and where, okay, we don't know. Could be something they did, I don't know, a month ago, a year ago, 5 years ago. Could be God's paying them back for, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. God's got patience, but you know what? Chain of events can happen and different things can happen. And it could be a much bigger thing. Could it be the end of the end? Could, in some ways, trigger all kinds of things. We don't, again, we don't know where it's going to go. In 2 weeks, the whole thing could stop. Also, we'll see what the repercussions are. But my guess would be from a Torah perspective, there's no question, they're going to get, if they're getting pummeled, it's because God wants them to, and they're getting paid back for what they've done. Question is, okay, what are the things they've done? Well, we know what Russia's done against the Jews. No question. Ukrainians, no lover of Jews. Russians, no lover of Jews. I don't care. Different dialects, different things, whatever. They're all in the same boat. They're all in the exact same boat. So how it ends up, anybody's guess. Right? Anybody's guess. But, it's not insignificant. Right? That I would say. Thunder points out the U.S. and Ukraine vote against, anti-Nazi resolution. Okay. That may be. So that might be, a saving grace for them. That doesn't negate the fact what they did in the past. Because of what they do now. Is that repentance? Somewhat, maybe. Again, I'm not in God's mind here. So maybe the punishment will be less because of good things that they do. Maybe. But there's but if you look at history, they deserve serious payback. The entire place deserves serious payback. Deserves serious payback. Could they do something that's so good that uproots all that? Could be. I find it hard to believe. Because no one goes through this world. In general, nothing happens to them unless they deserve it to happen to them. Whether it's going to be a test or anything else. And if we're tossed around and different things are going on, it's because of what we've done. Or maybe what our soul has done in the past. With reincarnation, all that. Could be. But nothing happens for no reason. We don't believe in quote unquote innocent victims. That doesn't exist. Right? And we should get that out of our head. That doesn't exist. There's payback one way or another, however it works out. Right? So what does King Solomon say? It's either in Proverbs or Ecclesiastes. No one's gone through this world and hasn't sinned. And if you sin, there's going to be payback at some level. Unless you totally repent and you uproot it. If you don't, there'll be payback. In different ways. Depending on what you did. All I'm pointing out is it's, you had a group of people, a country, a city, a town, whatever, did egregious things. God's not just going to sit there and say, okay, I'm going to let it go. At some point, something's going to happen. One way or another. Something's going to happen. Again, people say, they're being oppressed, they're being this, they're being... So in God's eyes, how does Judaism look at it? They're being punished. They're 100% being punished over here. Now, could it be for all the atrocities did against the Jews? Yeah. Could it be for other things? Could be for who knows how many things. Could be. But remember one thing. And that is, anyone who starts up with the Jews, they get demolished. Eventually. And it's happened to all powerful nations. Romans, Greeks, Babylonians. Anyone who's ever started up with the Jews went down. That is a historical fact. Historical fact. So, anyone who's done anything against the Jews, which is a lot of places, that's why the great Kabbalist who says that in the war of Gog and Magog, first group is going to get hit is Europe, not the place that's closest to Israel, because of all the Jewish blood there. Could be true. Europe drenched in Jewish blood. Drenched in Jewish blood. You don't think God's going to take care of them? He'll take care of them. And no question, he'll take care of them. When? Where? How? Anybody's guess. And he'll pay them back. Commensurate with what they've done. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop here. I just every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me at Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. Send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBIChaimCoffman